What's going on, my fellow A-plussers? Welcome back. It is I, your Morphinominal host, Adam Perez, back once again with another Ultraman Trigger review as we're about to get into episode number 9. Apologies for this review being up a little bit late. It has been a crazy weekend around here for me, guys. For those of you who don't know, we actually did have ourselves a convention out in the Dallas area this past weekend. Fan Expo Dallas had 3 fantastic days for the convention. Great to be back out, honestly, and have just some of the cosplayers, the celebrities, the artists, and everything out. It was fantastic, but we wind up getting press credits in order to go ahead and actually provide coverage for the event itself. So the past 3 days I've been out at the convention filming and coming back home to put some of the content together to go ahead and release on our other YouTube channel, A+ Hero Report. So it's been really busy around these parts here, guys. So that's one of the reasons why we didn't have any live episode of A+ Morphinominal this weekend, or why the Ultraman Trigger review is late. But we should be back on track next weekend. I do like to try and drop these reviews for you guys either Saturday evening or early Sunday for you guys to certainly enjoy. But next week we certainly will be back. But Ultraman Trigger episode number 9 did not disappoint this week, guys. I am in love with this series. I don't know if there's another show on television that I'm watching right now that really gets me that anticipated to come back for another episode each and every week, outside of maybe Dino Fury, honestly. But Ultraman Trigger, it just is just a step above everything that I feel like I'm currently watching right now. I love the drama. I love the mystery. I love the fact that episode 9 gives us a big chunk of answers that I think a lot of us were either speculating or theorizing certainly about. And trust me when I say there's plenty more questions out there that certainly needs to be answered, but I love the fact that this series does not mind revealing some answers literally 9 episodes into a series. You know what I mean? So plenty more to certainly come, but I'm loving the pacing of this series. Chairman Shizuma really shined for me in here, especially the actor that portrays him. Not too sure off the top of my head, at least. Maybe I'll have to look at his IMDb page and some of his previous work. But the actor that portrays Chairman Shizuma, phenomenal actress. I love the way that he just emotes on screen. He's just very captivating to me. Like anytime he's on the screen, I gotta pay attention to every little thing that he certainly talks about. So shout out to Chairman Shizuma. I also love the action in here. The design itself for some of the creatures absolutely worked, and of course getting to see Yuna discovering about her particular past and how she's connected to certain things. Great stuff this week, guys. Great stuff this week. If there's anything that wind up jumping out to me, though, there are certainly some significant things that we certainly have to talk about. First and foremost being Chairman Shizuma, as his secret is officially out. I do wonder if it's because of the fact that it's Yuna's 18th birthday. It feels very much like a coming-of-age moment for her, where she finally learns a little bit more about her mother, the connection that she certainly has to the bloodline of Yuzari, and certainly being a descendant of her. So it feels like I'm wondering if that's one of the reasons why he decided now, if any, is certainly the time to go ahead and reveal my secret to everybody. And I also do think his discovery that we see here of, you know, different places around the world, mentioning some of these monsters, I think once the bigger picture finally comes into play, I think this is one of the reasons why he certainly had to tell everybody. And I also do think it's important he mentions the idea that he thinks Gut Select as a whole deserves to know the truth, so that when the time comes and they all have to fight, they're all on the same page and know what they're fighting for. And I think that's very important. You know, granted, you've been keeping a lot of people in the dark, but having a moment of unity and bringing people sort of up to speed on what's going on and telling the truth, I think definitely will certainly go a long way for a Gut Select team that already works so incredibly well together. I love just the co-stars and just the supporting characters of this show. But I do think that it certainly does go a long way. So it has in fact been revealed, guys. Shizuma is in fact from the Ultraman Tiga dimension. He's been here on our Earth for the past 30 years or so. And I love the flashback sequences that we wind up getting. For somebody like myself who hasn't watched Ultraman Tiga, to be able to see just some of the vehicles, equipment, wardrobe, like uniforms and things like that, from the other organizations that were in the Ultraman Tiga dimension. I thought it was really cool to kind of see how something like that is established in another place. And because Shizuma himself was a part of that, now that he's on this Earth, using his vast knowledge that he has from his previous experiences, now being a part and forming those same organizations here on Earth. I actually really enjoy that idea. I mean, God, the guy wound up actually getting rather rich off of it, if you ask me, having that kind of detail of information. But I love seeing everything kind of come full circle, right? The idea that he reveals he is, in fact, from that dimension, wound up sort of getting caught up in something 30 years ago that transported him here. The idea that he eventually fell in love with somebody in Eureka and wind up having Yuna and things like that. And really, even as far back as about 6 years when the monsters started popping back up, the fact that he had that gut swing from his previous experience coming through the dimension and utilizing it for the first monster attack here really kind of set things in motion for Shizuma to go ahead and start building out Gut Select from that particular moment on, along with Akito's parents and things like that. So I really love just seeing it all kind of come full circle. I'm a sucker for lore building and world building, and Shizuma's Secret certainly does do just that. And I think for me, just execution-wise on how you tell the story, I think even made it more enjoyable for me in this episode. Like technically, editing-wise, just the idea of going back and forth between Chairman Shizuma expressing his story to his daughter, and then also seeing the captain on the Nurse Desi explaining the situation to the rest of the Gut Select team. Like just the edits, right? Like there's sometimes when Kengo's got a question and he's asking the captain, and then it'll cut to Shizuma, who winds up answering the question and giving us a little further details and insight. I love just the back and forth of how they wound up expressing that story. It really worked, and I thought it was great pacing also. But great stuff. Absolutely great stuff. Fully aware of Ultraman Tiga. And it's one of those things where I feel like we've been theorizing and speculating about this, right? Because I feel like even within the first 2 episodes of this, I was asking a question: how does Shizuma know this stuff, right? Like, was he Ultraman Tiga at one point in time? I think that was one of my suggestions. I was like, is he from that particular dimension? I certainly didn't know. I believe even maybe back in episode 5 or 6, one of the comments by Cross Z, you know, he mentioned the idea like, hey, that Guts wing looked like it was actually from Ultraman Tiga. Like, I wonder if Shizuma is from that dimension, or if that's the same one from that dimension. And it all comes together now. It all comes together. So definitely some of our speculations and theories certainly do hold up here. But I absolutely loved it. And I think also for me, Shizuma just continues to shine in this episode, especially when we get to see him utilizing the Guts wing at the very end of this to go ahead and help Ultraman Trigger take out the monster. But like just some of his moves, like the idea that he used it as a prototype for Guts Falcon, so he still has that same sort of virtual reality motif. Or a theme, I should say. The idea of seeing Chairman Shizuma put on his gloves and getting ready for action and stuff. Absolutely loved it. It was almost one of the, like, if you guys ever watched wrestling before, sometimes when like the veterans come back and they get into action for the first time, the fans will start chanting, you know, you still got it, you still got it, right? Like after all those years, to see Shizuma just getting ready for battle and put on his VR simulation stuff, I was like, yo, impressive stuff. Seeing how he was able to utilize the Guts wing in here. Even a really cool shot when his wing is on fire, how he shoots the water, and as it splashes up, he takes the wing underneath it so that the water extinguishes the flames. Like, smooth Shizuma. And it's almost, and also he definitely has a Star Wars moment in here, which reminded me of the very first movie, A New Hope, with Luke Skywalker when he goes to destroy the Death Star for the first time, right? Like when we see him, you know, going down the trench and he's got his, you know, his targeting system on, he decides to turn it off, sort of thing. And the guy's like, Luke, are you okay? You turned off your targeting system. He's like, I got it. I'm good. And he takes the shot pretty much just using the Force. Shizuma used the Force in this episode, guys. I'm just letting you guys know. He used the Force. The homeboy literally just takes off his visor and just closes his eyes and does everything off his senses and feels and pulls the trigger to go ahead and take out the monster's eye. Incredible stuff, man. Absolutely incredible stuff to show Shizuma. He's no slouch. He's not just a chairman. This guy certainly has experience, and I absolutely loved it. So great moments in here for Shizuma. And honestly, I'm really glad that Yuna finally has some answers to the questions that she's been asking herself. And so that definitely brings up the second person I need to talk about in here. It's her 18th birthday. And again, I assume because of her coming of age, Shizuma felt it was right to certainly finally tell her. And he winds up discussing her mom with her and Eureka, and how the ancient battle with the giants of darkness 30 million years ago involves the bloodline of her deceased mom. So she's technically a descendant of Yuzari after all those years. And I just love the concept of it kind of coming full circle. Somebody from another dimension meet somebody here on Earth who happens to be connected to the overall scheme of the show with the Giants of Darkness, and they wind up having, you know, giving birth to somebody that's a descendant of this very powerful being from 30 million years ago. Like, there's something really cool about that. And I love the fact that Yuna actually gets to see Yuzari with her own eyes. A lot of the time Yuzari comes forth, you know, Yuna winds up usually falling unconscious or doesn't remember anything. But there's a great scene towards the end when Yuzari comes out to protect them once again. And this is Yuna's moment to actually see Yuzari for herself. So I'm sure there's going to be a lot more revelations when it comes to Yuna. But, you know, I mentioned this previously a couple episodes ago. She deserves to know the truth. And I'm so glad that they decided to go ahead and do that, you know, because she clearly has been struggling. So I'm glad that she wound up finding out the truth from her father and not everything from, say, a giant of darkness that winds up having her kidnapped or something like that. You know what I mean? And this does make a connection and an honorable mention I want to bring up to Dargon. Because when Yuzari does sort of almost awaken in this episode, we do see the Giants of Darkness really pleased about this. But the only person that isn't pleased and seems more into deep contemplation is Dargon, the very powerful one, if you will. He's been acting funny ever since he wound up getting slapped by Yuna. And it does make me wonder what the connection is between the two of them. Like, I do wonder if Dargon and Yuzari, if they maybe had a relationship at some point in time 30 million years ago. I wonder if there's a bigger connection than what they're certainly given us so far. So I am going to be very fascinated to see how that turns out. But I am glad to see that Yuna wound up getting some answers in here and really showcasing just how big of a role she's certainly going to be playing. And this does also bring up another honorable mention in regards to the Gut Select team deciding to go ahead and have a birthday party for Yuna in here, and seeing everybody come together and put together all the decorations and things like that. But really the moment for me was when we get to see Akito's present towards Yuna. The fact that he winds up giving her like a bedazzled stun gun. And it's one of those things, like, you know, I laugh at it, but I really do hope that this stun gun comes into play at some particular point in time in this series. Like, I hope that she keeps it on her, and maybe if she gets into trouble, she eventually uses it, right? Like, I do wonder if it's one of those things like Akito gave it to her to keep the other guys away now that she's 18, because of the fact that he cares about her so much and doesn't want anybody else to get near her, or if it's really to kind of protect herself. I mean, it might be a little bit of both, but I could definitely see Akito giving it to her to keep other men away, more than the Giants of Darkness at this point in time. But just hearing like Hamari lean over to Yuna and is like, wow, how clueless is this guy, type of thing, just continues to give me great humor and chuckles throughout this series, because again, I do love the chemistry between the Gut Select team, honestly. Towards the end of the episode, we see that there's more of the ancient ruins actually revealed to us in here, so there's clearly more to the story and things like that to certainly be told. But overall, guys, great action. Speaking of the monster here in this week, Gargorgon, I love the great flashback moments, and I also love the idea of just his design. Very Cyclopsy, you know, the one eye thing that sort of turns you to stone the moment that it sees you. And I even dig the idea that even despite being sealed away for 30 million years, that the creature is smart enough not to fall for the same trick that put him where he's at last time, right? Like when Yuzari goes and reflects that blast back at him. I love that Gargagon moves out of the way just in the nick of time, sort of thing. So great stuff, man. I was a really big fan of this. Shizuma certainly stood out to me. Yuna certainly stood out to me. I am bummed though that Shizuma went back to what he was doing prior. I was kind of hoping that maybe after this big reveal, he would kind of stick around a little bit longer in this series, or make his presence felt a little bit more maybe for the next episode or two, but he's clearly back doing more surveys and things like that. But I kind of dig it. I wouldn't mind seeing more footage of the time of Shizuma in his other dimension. We got to see Ultraman Tiga in here also very briefly, talking about how many people Ultraman Tiga wind up saving and things like that. So he's very familiar with the Ultraman concept, and to see him sort of know what that ability is capable of doing and handing it off to Kengo. I feel like now that we know Shizuma's secrets, I almost want to go back and watch the first couple of episodes just to see like how much it actually clears things up or like explains some of Shizuma's actions very early on in this particular series so far. But I love it, guys. I absolutely love it. But again, I've mentioned this before, that I'm a big fan of flashbacks because I do think that it does add so much lore and world building to it. So you guys know I was absolutely eating up this particular episode. But listen, guys, again, at the end of the day, these are just my A+ opinions. I definitely want to go ahead and know yours, though. What do you guys think about episode number 9? And if there's any character moments or character details, plot lines and details that you guys want to further discuss, please let your thoughts be known in the live chat or the comment section box below after this video airs, so we can certainly go ahead and continue this conversation before next week's episode, guys. But other than that, Ultraman Trigger continues to impress. I certainly hope you enjoyed this episode as much as I did. But in the meantime, guys, do me a big favor. Take care of yourselves, take care of each other, and as always, keep it A+. We'll talk to you guys later. Bye.